Cassie Ventura walked into the courtroom with quiet resolve, but what she revealed would send shockwaves through the world of music and beyond. Under oath, Cassie exposed a decade-long nightmare. Her testimony didn't just accuse Diddy of physical abuse, it portrayed him as the architect of a violent, manipulative world. She described what she called freak-offs, multi-day sex rituals orchestrated by Diddy involving male escorts, coercion, and drugs. With tears in her eyes, she testified, "Sometimes Sean, or an escort, would urinate on me. It wasn't something I wanted, I was forced, I was humiliated." She told the court how she was choked during these rituals. "There was too much urine in my mouth," she recalled. Her voice cracked as she described the degradation, and yet the worst part wasn't the act, it was the control. Cassie described a life where nothing was her own. "He dictated how I dressed, who I could talk to, when I could leave the house," she said. "Even my phone and laptop were taken if I disobeyed." She explained that every detail of her life was monitored. Her clothing, selected by him, her body, altered by diets and workouts designed not for health but for sexual performance. "I wasn't living, I was surviving," she told the jury. The testimony painted a dual existence. Publicly, Cassie appeared successful, beautiful, and adored. Privately, she was isolated, controlled, and breaking. "I felt like a puppet," she said. "He would gaslight me, make me feel like I was imagining the abuse. I lost my grip on reality." Every story she told was darker than the last, yet through it all, she kept repeating one haunting phrase: "I didn't know how to escape." This wasn't just a breakup gone wrong. This was systematic dehumanization, a psychological trap that blurred the lines between love, fear, and total obedience. If you think the physical abuse was horrifying, what Cassie described next went even deeper, into the invisible scars no one could see. She wasn't just battered, she was broken. Cassie told the court that Diddy manipulated every corner of her mind. "I didn't have privacy. I didn't have agency. Everything was his." She revealed that if she didn't meet his expectations, she faced punishments. "I'd have my electronics taken away, my phone, my laptop, sometimes for weeks. Nights would pass in silence. I couldn't call anyone, I couldn't reach out. I was cut off from the world. It was his way of reminding me who was in control." Diddy even dictated her image. He made sure I had my nails painted white with French tips. He wanted me to look a certain way at all times. If I didn't, I paid for it. She added, "He tracked my calories. He ordered workouts. I wasn't preparing for a music tour. I was preparing for the freak-offs." Cassie said she would receive passive-aggressive compliments if she looked just right, but if she missed the mark, he'd punish her. "He said my face looked tired, that I didn't deserve attention if I couldn't keep up." She recalled the psychological manipulation. "He'd gaslight me, make me believe that my trauma was just drama, that I was the problem." She testified that he worked to isolate her from her entire support system. "He said my mom didn't understand me, that my friends were jealous. Over time, I believed him." She described waking up in full makeup, not out of vanity, but fear. "He didn't want to see me look human. I had to be perfect, always." Cassie ended this part of her testimony with a whisper. "Every day, I felt like I was slowly disappearing, and in that silence, the courtroom sat frozen." As if the emotional trauma wasn't devastating enough, Cassie's testimony veered into even darker territory, where guns, drugs, and fear collided. She described a chilling night in Los Angeles, high on mushrooms, disoriented, and holding a gun. Cassie testified that she was driven to a diner, confused, trembling, after a confrontation between Diddy and Suji Knight had escalated behind closed doors. "I had no idea why I had the gun," she said. "I was terrified it would go off. My hands were shaking the entire time. It didn't feel real, but the fear was." To Cassie, this wasn't a random event. "It felt like a test or a message," she said, "like he wanted to see how far I'd go, what I'd become under his control." She added that drug use was a common part of life with Diddy. "He normalized it," she testified. "Mushrooms, ecstasy, cocaine. Sometimes it was subtle. Other times it was the center of the evening." She recounted one party where she was given a drink and woke up 2 days later. "He told me it was normal, but I didn't remember anything. That scared me more than anything." Cassie painted a picture of a world without boundaries. Everyone was high. Consent was a gray area, and he thrived in that chaos. She also spoke about the presence of firearms. "There were always guns around," she testified. "He wanted us to see them. He didn't have to point them at anyone. Just seeing them on the table was enough to make you think twice before speaking out." It wasn't just fear, it was power. controlled chaos, where drugs numbed the pain and weapons ensured silence. Cassie's story is more than tragic, it's a warning, a glimpse into a hidden world where fear, fame, and control collide. Among the most disturbing parts of Cassie's testimony was her detailed account of what she called freak-offs events that sounded more like organized abuse than anything remotely consensual. She described these encounters as lasting up to 4 days. The longest one, she said, went on with breaks for sleep, but barely. I was just trying to stay awake, recover from the drugs and dehydration. Cassie said she was forced to participate in group sex with male escorts hired by Diddy. They were scheduled, she explained. There were rules, performances. It wasn't intimacy, it was theater for him. She said these freak-offs were like a job. You had to perform. If you showed hesitation, you got punished. Not with yelling, but with silence, withdrawal, sometimes worse. She detailed how she was instructed to prepare. Diet plans, strict exercise routines, outfit choices. It was like training for a performance I never wanted to be in. She added that even the timing of her meals and rest was controlled. Everything had to fit his fantasy, but these weren't private affairs. Cassie claimed Diddy invited others, some famous, some not. They watched, sometimes participated, sometimes filmed. She said she never knew where the footage went, just that it existed. She said she didn't even realize the long-term damage until years later. It made me numb to everything. I started forgetting who I was when I wasn't performing. She also testified that the freak-offs had devastating effects on her music career. I signed a 10-album deal in 2006. I only released 1 record. Everything else took a backseat to his control. She added, my creative energy was drained. I wasn't a singer, I was a possession. Something to show off when he wanted, and hide when he didn't. The freak-offs weren't just about control. They were about destruction of identity, ambition, and autonomy. And in the process, they erased an entire career. If there was still any doubt about how far Diddy's control extended, Cassie's next revelation erased it. She testified that Diddy allegedly recorded their intimate encounters without her full consent and used those videos to manipulate her. He had everything on tape, she said, and he reminded me all the time, don't forget what I have. She described the paralyzing fear of public exposure. He'd say things like, if you ever betray me, I'll make sure the world sees you the way I want them to. The threat wasn't just about shame. It was about erasure. He didn't just control my body. He controlled my image, my identity. Cassie explained that the tapes weren't stored randomly. He had an archive. He was organized. Footage was labeled, sorted. It wasn't just phone videos, it was an entire library of leverage. She recalled moments when she'd hear him describe videos casually in conversation, sometimes joking about them, sometimes threatening their release. It was psychological warfare. He never had to hit me, he just had to remind me. According to Cassie, the fear of those videos going public kept her quiet for years. I stopped arguing. I stopped trying to leave. I lived under a digital leash. She even suspected that others had seen some of the footage. He hinted, laughed, gave knowing looks. I felt like I was being humiliated in private, and maybe even in public. Experts describe this as a form of technological captivity, a modern method of silencing victims not with threats of violence, but of exposure. The result? The same level of fear, isolation, and loss of autonomy. Cassie's story shows how control can take many forms, and how even technology in the wrong hands becomes a weapon. Her voice, once trapped behind shame, is finally being heard. But the trauma left by those threats? It may never fully fade. As Cassie stepped down from the stand, the courtroom wasn't just left in silence, it was left reeling. Her testimony, spanning 2 days, painted a chilling picture of abuse, manipulation, surveillance, and trauma. But now comes the hardest part. The legal battle ahead. Sean Diddy Combs and his defense team have denied every allegation. They argue that these were private matters between consenting adults, that Cassie's recollections are exaggerated, fabricated, or motivated by money and revenge. But experts are already calling this one of the most consequential celebrity trials in recent memory, not just because of who's on trial, but because of what's being revealed about the systems that protect powerful men. Diddy's lawyers are preparing to cross-examine witnesses and introduce their own evidence. But public opinion is shifting. Each day of the trial brings more scrutiny, more questions, and a growing call for accountability. Cassie's legal team has hinted that more witnesses may come forward. Insiders, former employees, friends. If they testify, the trial could explode in new directions, and the stakes aren't just reputational, they're legal. If the court believes that these acts were part of a larger pattern of coercion, surveillance, and trafficking, Diddy could be facing not just disgrace, but real prison time. Regardless of the verdict, the damage to his legacy is undeniable. Endorsements are being pulled, collaborators are distancing, brands are going silent. The image of the untouchable mogul? Cracked. For Cassie, the trial is about something far more personal. "This isn't just for me," she said. "It's for every woman who's been silenced by fear." This case is far from over, and so is the conversation. What happens next may change not just the fate of a man, but how we understand fame, power, and justice in America. Subscribe now for every explosive update. Like this video if you believe voices like Cassie's deserve to be heard, because silence only protects the powerful. And that silence ends here.